Friends and neighbors, hi, and welcome back to Mission Control Houston's Hockey Podcast. I am your host, Matt Savage, and I'm not saying I just recorded an episode and had the microphone on the wrong settings, but I'm not saying it either. Let's do the headset this time. Hey, let's talk about the CNBC interview that if you didn't watch it, you probably saw clips from it. If you didn't, I'm going to tell you about it to save you from watching it because man, it's an awful interview. But he confirmed some things that we already knew. Um, Chief among them that the expansion fee will start with a two, as he put it. He says CNBC says the average league valuation is $2.2 billion. He pushed back on that valuation, saying that the teams are worth much more than that, using the Maple Leafs as an example. Like, oh, okay, Gary, calm down. Um, but the number's going to start with a two. Okay, fine. He also made a point which is kind of true, but mostly disingenuous. He said, well, when we do expansion, our teams have to share with the new teams also. So it's kind of putting them out a bit. It's like, oh, okay, Gary, that's true, but it's also growing the league, which all your owners want. You're adding two games to the schedule, which is more money there too. And I bet you anything, when the vote for expanding comes up, it's going to be a unanimous vote because it always is. So maybe not so much there. But he did say something that we all thought, but nice to have the confirmation, is that the owners want the league to expand by two eventually. He says we're not in expansion mode, but I mean that's only technically true until the teams get announced, right? So anyway, expanding by two, which I guess means that we could be friends with Atlanta and we're not rivals. Okay, fine. Um, yeah, but I said awful interview because there were two hosts in this thing, and the female uh, co-host asked good questions about things I cared about, and she kept getting shouted down by the guy. And this isn't some woke, let's empower women, you know, uh, take. It's no. I watched the interview and I was getting annoyed. Take. Um, but the last question that this guy interrupts her on, she's like, what cities do you see as being expansion destinations or something like that? That was the gist. And not that we expected Gary to actually answer this, uh, but I would have liked to have heard how he responded to it. And instead, her co-host is like, Gary, what about gambling? Well, just shut up. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. You now got the gist of the interview, so you don't have to watch this thing. We should probably mention this, right? The Olympic hockey arena. And this is a picture from October. I mean, the Olympics are in February. They're supposed to be testing things next month. And I mean, if this is in October, this is mid October too. This doesn't look good. I mean, we've been hearing stories that it might not be ready. And what's the hell of it is Olympic officials are saying there is no plan B if things aren't ready. And it's like, I got news for you. A plan B is going to emerge very quickly if this thing is not ready for play next month when things get tested. But man, this is not looking good at all. And then we find out that even if things do go smoothly, which I don't know, man, this is going to be a hell of a watch. We learned yesterday from Pete DeBoer, who is assistant coach for Team Canada, that the ice is going to be smaller than the NHL standard, which, as I recall, international play meant a larger ice surface, and that benefited the Euros because their ice surfaces are larger, allowing for finesse and speed and all that stuff. And I don't know, man. We might be getting more physicality in these Olympics, which I don't know. I kind of like that. I mean, we're worried about the Olympics being boring compared to four nations, and I don't know if there's a lot more contact. That won't be the case. So either way, I am interested in the Olympic hockey again for non-hockey reasons. Like, what the hell's going to happen to this? So yeah, stay tuned, kids. Yeah, it's got all the makings of a fun disaster movie. Um, Now something else I want to talk about though, or really the bulk of today's episode. Last episode we talked about where would you put an arena, and it got some comments, and I got four suggestions from various areas. YouTube comments mostly, but Insta, X. Um, Someone emailed me. It's like, okay, cool. That's why I put it out there. um, with where else we could put an arena. So let's go through this again. And mind you, you're not getting grad student historian level research here. We're doing this for funsies. So it's hey, let me fart around on Google a bit, combined with some AI stuff because ChatGPT actually generated some cool looking charts and graphs for me here. And hell, I don't know, it might all be AI hallucinations. But in the end, apologies to Lincoln Park. In the end, none of this really matters. First things first about our arena thing is our criteria, because this is getting ignored too much when we talk about where to put an arena. It's hard and fast, it's a legal thing. Tillman has this. Wherever we put an arena, if it's in Harris County, either, sorry, the game's on. I'm looking at it. Sorry, you got me. Uh, if it's in Harris County, you need to put it outside of a 30-mile radius from Toyota Center, or it needs to be outside of Harris County. And it's like, well, we could just pay Tillman off. No, we can't. And you say we, it's easy to spend someone else's money. Um, no, you can't. But just think about this for a second. Here, let me get all serious with you. So, look, keep in mind, we're not just building, because we're doing it, we're not just building a hockey arena. We're building an entertainment center, because that's what these arenas are, which means that nights the Rockets aren't playing, Tillman wants to fill it with a concert or whatever. He wants them in Toyota Center and not in, I'm going to call it Bucky's Arena until we have a better name, right? He doesn't want them in Bucky's Arena. Okay. So to pay him to overlook his contract with Harris County would be to balance out whatever revenue he loses from losing out on half the concerts, let's say. He doesn't want to do that. Why would he? So, no, we need to pay attention to this mandatory greater than or equal to 30 miles away from Toyota Center if it's in Harris County. Okay. And then all the other things that just make sense, the obvious stuff. It needs to be an affluent area. It needs to be accessible. I put access. All right, fine. It needs to be accessible for transportation, decent highways. I know the owners aren't going to care about traffic, but people that will buy season tickets do, and owners care about them. It needs to have a strong corporate base. It needs to be in an area where political leaders are willing to have a public-private partnership. And I should have wrote this on here, but I didn't. Logistically, it needs to be close enough to an airport. Last episode, we talked about modern NHL arenas are within 20 miles of an airport, which makes perfect sense. So we looked at these places. Some of these are holdovers from last time, but again, your suggestions doubles the size of the list. Clear Lake, Conroe, East Montgomery County, Katy, Pearland, Sugarland, Woodlands, and Waller County. Okay. So, just to run through these really quick, Clear Lake. Clear Lake works with tourism. You're going to get people in that area, but it's not like it's Vegas tourism. It works as close to the airport. Okay, fine. But that's where it ends. It's far from the woodlands. And remember from last episode, we care about that because there's a large center of wealth north of I-10. You don't want to try to make people go too far south. And there's no real corporate presence in Clear Lake. So, okay, fine. Moving on to our next area. New suggestion, Conroe. It is a growing area. There is available land in Conroe, but way too far for the rest of the city. Um, Now keep in mind one of the issues that they had they with the Arizona Coyotes is when they moved out of Phoenix and over to Glendale, that just wasn't practical. So having it too far from a city hub doesn't make sense. And yeah, I think Conroe's too far for that. And there's no real corporate presence up there. There's a little, I get, but to be a viable location, not so much. This one's interesting because I used to live here, so it's interesting to me. How about that? Um, East Montgomery County, that New Caney area is booming. Um, and since they got 99 finished up there, and I'm acting like it's a new thing because I don't go up there as much as I should. But 59 and 99 right there. If you live out in that area, if you live like in Kingwood, you're familiar with the term the Kingwood bubble, where people don't typically venture out of that bubble too much. And when they do, they go down to Humble, and that's about where it stops. Um, because you have this area of affluence that's surrounded by not so much affluence. Um, so it's a growing area, uh, lots of available land. You'll notice I put here it was question mark open to development. And you'll also notice I have this Houston Press article here. I don't know if you remember this, but when I lived up there around 2005, there was this plan. This developer came in and sold to Montgomery County. Hey, we can fill the gap left by the absence of Astroworld. We can build up this huge. You'll notice the graphic there. Environmental uh, theme park. Bunch of money gets put into this, and come to find out, I don't want to say the word fraud because I don't know all the details, but a lot of money went wasted and I believe unaccounted for. And there were a lot of fact finding missions at taxpayer expense to go to theme parks in Europe or Asia or whatever. And a lot of money just got squandered. Now, the reason I bring this up is because it shows a commitment to invest in infrastructure projects to bring outside money into that area. But you'll also notice I put was there because when all this happened and a lot of money got unaccounted for, a lot of these politicians got voted out of office. So I don't know what the current mindset is of East Montgomery County, but at least at one time they were like, yeah, let's do big things to grow this region. And they kind of still are. I mean, like if you look at the football stadium for New Caney ISD, that thing, it's like a collegiate football stadium, you know? So there's some level of being willing to invest in infrastructure in the area. And that's an interesting idea. You know, if New Caney's really growing. But you'll notice I said here pockets of poverty, and that could be my bias from living up there. You know, I've driven through those trailer park areas and I don't know what else to call them, shanties, the area where those are. And at one time, and I think still, but I probably should have done research before saying this on camera, but I think, well, that's my disclaimer. It was the methamphetamine capital of the United States. Now, that doesn't take away from the affluence that's up there, but it's also something that makes you kind of pause when you go, yeah, it'd be a great place for an arena. So, there we are. It'd be cool for me. My kid lives in the area. So, hey, I'll go up there, pick up the kid, go to a game. That'd be great. Okay. My favorite, Katie. Just easy for me to say. It does have a base of all this stuff we talked about last week. It does have a affluent base. It does have corporate dollars from Park 10 Energy Corridor area, but I-10 sucks unless you're a human trafficker. I-10 sucks. And again, ownership doesn't care, but season ticket holders do, which means ownership would care. So, and then of course, logistically, it's far from an airport, which makes the whole idea of putting an arena in Katy really not feasible unless there's a way to work around that. And I don't know, until we get Star Trek transporter technology, I don't know what you do about that. Okay, here's a suggestion that I got right as I was putting this episode together. Pearland, and I find it a really interesting idea because it is accessible to medical center, to downtown, to Hobby Airport, and all that. It is a growing region. It is upper middle class demographics. Wasn't always, but it is upper middle class demographics. And there's lots of available land. And here's the big one: no retail district. Okay, so like in other suburbs where you have that town center or marketplace or whatever they call it, Pearland doesn't have that, which means there's all this available land that Friedkin, or we're assuming it's Friedkin, can come in there, put an arena down. But if you look at new arenas and stadiums for football and baseball too, those owners don't just want an arena anymore. They want a big freaking real estate blueprint where they can insert the arena and also that retail district and entertainment district with bars and restaurants and nightlife, so that ownership group can get that 365-day revenue, not just when the team's in season. The revenue doesn't disappear when the team gets eliminated from the playoffs. This would be really appealing. The only issue that I see with Pearland, aside from it's kind of far south, um, weak corporate base, and yeah, you would still get the big sponsors from the Houston area, but there also needs to kind of have that neighborhood feel, something next to the arena slash practice facilities. How much does that matter at the NHL level? I don't know, but it is a consideration. All right. Sugarland. When we look at what's accessible and balance it out with where the affluence is, excuse me. Yeah, it's far from the woodlands, but there's enough affluence in Sugarland to kind of balance things out. You do have businesses, corporations based in Sugarland because of when years ago Sugarland had all those tax incentives, yeah, sure, for corporations to come down there. There's already existing entertainment districts. I don't know of a way that a new arena could tack onto it, but maybe. The only real issue with Sugarland is that it is a long drive for North Houston, and as we mentioned in the last episode, most of the metro area's wealth base is north of I-10. Next, the Woodlands, which seems to be a favorite of a lot of y'all in the comments. So I can guess where most of y'all live. High affluence, sure. Corporate diversity, sure. There's pockets of poverty in the Woodlands too, just like there is any other area of town. But you have all that cool stuff there. You have pretty stuff there. I would think that there's available land to tack on to some of this. I don't know for certain, but it seems like. But again, problem with the Woodlands, half the city is going to be annoyed if you put it up in the Woodlands. Why do we care? Why would ownership care? Ownership cares because are people willing to buy season tickets to drive up to the Woodlands? I don't know the answer to that. I would, but would casuals? And that's who we're looking at, right? Next, Waller County, suggested solely because it was outside of that 30-mile restriction. It's up on the it's up outside of that radius. Um, Maybe it's ripe for development down the line, but it isn't now, so it doesn't really make it feasible. There's no real infrastructure. There's no real corporate base. Okay. Let me show you this graphic that ChatGPT generated for me because I thought it was interesting. And for all I know, this is just a hallucination. But it seemed like an interesting idea where people, or where in the city or metro area, to put an arena to get the most season ticket sales. Interesting, right? Sugarland and Pearland. and I would imagine this is based on distance driving and things like that. Interesting that the Woodlands ranks last here. And again, I'm not entirely certain what this is based on, and feel free to do some research and get back to me. But um, yeah, interesting, right? So there's that. And then, can we do that? Yeah, we can. I found this heat map very interesting. So the x-axis, I I think I have this. Look, I have a liberal arts degree. The x-axis, which is where people live, that's the vertical, and where people live, combined with where you put the arena, that's the horizontal axis, the y-axis. And interesting to me, right? Like you put the arena in Sugarland, people from the Woodlands don't want to get season tickets there for the most part. You put it in the Woodlands, and people from Sugarland and also people from Katy say no. So interesting to look at here. Feel free to pause this and interact with it because I thought yeah, just and again, who knows if this is just an AI hallucination. Okay, I'm going to keep it just on the no camera thing here. So where does that leave us? All right. Well, Sugarland barely beats out the Woodlands if you believe the math that ChatGPT does. And here's that math now. So here's the rankings, and again, not by much, but Sugarland barely beats out the Woodlands. Pearland, which I thought was interesting, the math puts it on par with Katy. So again, I don't know how viable any of this is, but there we are. You know what really prompted this conversation with myself is, well, number one, y'all's comments really got me thinking about other areas. But as I'm thinking about, well, where should an arena go? With the CNBC article and more people talking expansion, and like I was in a live stream as an audience member for Shannon the Hockey Guys live stream, and of course expansion comes up because it always does. Anytime there's a hockey live stream at all lately, and they're talking Atlanta. Look at all the things Atlanta is doing. And but speaking of Atlanta, I mean there's two ownership groups that are looking to get something done there. One of them is putting an arena within 20 miles of where the Thrashers played, and I saw that and I'm like, well, wait a minute, wasn't the whole issue with the Thrashers where the arena was located? I mean, does 20 miles really make that much of a difference? But another group is looking to put an arena, and I forget which one. Actually, not that I forget. I don't really care because I don't live in Atlanta. But just from an outsider's perspective, one of the other groups is looking to put an arena like 45 minutes outside of town, and I'm like, that doesn't sound viable. That sounds like the Arizona Coyotes all over again. However, as I'm looking at this, I'm going, man, kind of jealous of Atlanta because at least there's news coming out of Atlanta. There's not news coming out of Houston. Again, Friedkin has not made a public statement yet. I mean, we just assumed that Emily Kaplan was right when she reported that, yeah, there's ownership groups. Friedkin's looking to be an owner for a Houston team. And it kind of gets me whiny. And I make comments that are whiny. Like, why hasn't ground been broken on a stadium? Which, yeah, it's mostly whining, but also there's a practical thing here. If we assume that a team's going to start playing 2030 and it takes 3 to 5 years to build a quality stadium or arena, excuse me, um, I'm trying to correct myself on that. Stadiums are for football and baseball, and soccer arenas are for hockey and basketball. And I don't know who decided that or if it's really a technical thing, but as far as I'm concerned, but you know, if it takes that long to build an arena, well, we should start hearing something very soon, right? I mean, and 5 years is a long time. I get that. We're not looking for. It's not like a retractable roof or anything, but still, 3 years. We should be hearing something about building an arena. And then I decided to stop whining
Stop whining.
and start thinking. why? Why haven't we heard anything about an arena? That, okay, that's a good question that we should be thinking about. Okay, I want Friedkin to make an announcement and someone to say, "Hey, we're breaking ground on an arena right here." But if it were me, if I was a billionaire that wanted to keep being a billionaire, knowing I had to set aside at least, let's say 2.7 billion, because you need the expansion fee plus you need about half a billion for an arena. Oh crap, more than that because you also have to build practice facilities too. But okay, fine. Well, let's call it 3 even. All right, because it's easy to spend someone else's money. But if I wanted to stay a billionaire, knowing I needed to put up that kind of money, I'm looking for the best deal I can get. All the things that we talked about earlier, like, oh, traffic's gonna suck and where are people gonna be willing to buy season tickets to? Yeah, you want a good public private partnership. And if I'm Friedkin or his representatives or whatever, I'm probably playing suburbs against each other. You would think a story like that would leak though. But anyway, maybe this is copium, but I'm inhaling. Yeah, I'm going to go back to something I said a couple of episodes ago. Quiet is good. We haven't heard about a disaster yet. We've heard every time that there was a potential team coming or Les buying the team or Watson trying to buy a team or something. We heard every time that screwed up. We haven't heard of a disaster yet, so no news is good news, I guess. Well, anyway, let me hear from you in the comments what you think here. And hey, let's keep on going, right? Well, it had to happen eventually. My students found the podcast. So, hi, kids. And yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to you about hockey, but get your A push stuff done first. All right. Thanks. All right. Hope you enjoyed that. And let's get to the, well, it's becoming a traditional feature here on the show. Our Houston hockey calendar. And the whole reason I'm releasing this on Thursday is so there is time for this video to percolate and go out for, and I know we talked about it on the last episode too, but the ISHL, that's the high school kids, their teddy bear toss in their game between Klein and Tomball at the Aerodrome. So, you find yourself without anything to do on Friday night. Why not, man? Go toss out a teddy bear. Uh, Something else that was mentioned last episode is I don't really feel comfortable talking about the beer league teams around town. I kind of feel like I'm intruding on their spaces. And yet, well, there's a charity, uh, tourney. And when I looked on their website, it's a Phoenix Cup Charity Classic. It's an easy Google search, but it looked like there was like 20 something teams participating in this thing for pediatric cancer research. So yeah, Saturday at the Aerodrome. Cool. And then Sunday, I just saw this recently on the 14th. You have Flyers alumni, and you also have some guys born in Eastern Europe who are recreating that 50th anniversary of the Flyers exhibition game with the Russian Red Army team. Doubtful having the same level of violence, but it's a cool idea. I don't know, man. I would be hesitant to put on. You know what? I should have wrote CCCP on here instead of USSR, but whatever. I mean, I'd be hesitant to put on that Soviet uni. But I guess when you're doing Civil War reenactments, someone's got to be the Confederates too, right? So, um, yeah, what a fun idea. So there you go. That'll be at Slice. And speaking of things at Slice and things not at Slice, Um, UH is going to play Dallas Baptist University, which I didn't know existed until a couple of weeks ago. They'll be doing that on the 16th at Slice, but then on the 17th they're playing at Bellarive. So I'm wondering if this is like what A&M did when they came down here. and played at Slice for the UH home game, and then rather than go all the way back to College Station, they said, "Oh, screw it, let's play at Aerodrome." I wonder, excuse me, if DBU is doing the same thing rather than traveling. And also, UH and Rice is going to meet again at Bellarive, and I'm so happy that Rice got up and going just as quickly as they did. I know, not a full roster and all that, but man, just how impressive that is. Okay, and then our Olympics start, and we start with the women's team. Thursday the 5th, they play in the morning for those of you that have the kind of job where you can pull up the game on a monitor and pretend to be working or multitasking or whatever. Saturday the 7th, though, is Girls and Women's Hockey Day. That's the bad abbreviating I did there at Frosttown Brewing. So I don't know if you want to start drinking at 10 a.m. That's actually, that might not be a horrible way to spend a Saturday. But anyway, there you go. All right, kids. So what did we learn today? Well, I learned to check my mic settings. I'll tell you that. I also learned, and I was thinking this as I was doing the episode, for a hockey show. We talk remarkably little about hockey, and I understand that's just a logistical thing, and that's part of the reason behind the infrequent posting schedule, because it's like, well, without a team, there's very little to talk about. I honestly think that when the team starts play, I'll probably do like 3 times a week or something, and more people in the show and more involvement and all that. But man, I would like to not talk about arenas. Well, anyway, with that having been said, friends and neighbors, remember, it'd be great if you'd wave the flag and expand the community talking up hockey. And until then, we out.